Agile is probably one of the most widely discussed subjects out in the development industry, and it is probably one of the most widely misunderstood. And so we've published an article that aims to give you a very clear definition of what Agile actually is and what it was meant to do, and to also clear up some of the major misconceptions that exist about the Agile development philosophy. The reason why this is important for business analysts is because the development philosophy that your organization has chosen directly affects the way in which you do your work, your analysis work, okay? And some of the drawbacks of Agile a lot of times are not very clearly misunderstood by management. So when the management of your company, for example, adopts Agile as a development principle, they don't always have a very clear view of some of the drawbacks or some of the downsides. And that blind spot can create a lot of confusion, and it can make your life as an analyst very difficult. And so in this video, what I want to do is I just want to touch on a few points in this article. I'll leave the link for the article itself in the description, and you can read the entire article if you want to get a very comprehensive understanding of what Agile actually is. But we'll give a definition, and then I really want to talk about one very important drawback that often tends to be a blind spot for management. And I want to give you some advice on some of the things that you can do to try to make up for that drawback of Agile if your organization has chosen to go Agile, okay? So starting off with the definition, the easiest way to understand Agile is to understand it as a software development philosophy that encourages the team to break up the solution that they have into multiple releases instead of waiting until the end of the development cycle to release the entire solution to the customer right at the tail end. That's essentially what Agile is, and that is what Agile was meant to do, okay? Some of the misconceptions that exist out there are that Agile is meant to help the team do a lot more work in a shorter period of time. That is completely false. And if the management of your organization has been sold on the idea that Agile is going to do that for them, that's going to create a lot of pressure on you as the analyst and the rest of the development team to try and meet expectations that are sometimes not very realistic, okay? And so that's why it's very important for you to really understand it. If you're in more of a leadership role in your organization, you might have to educate your organization on exactly what Agile was meant to do and really clearly understand what some of the drawbacks are so that you have some sort of a game plan in your mind to manage that risk when the time comes for you to execute a project in Agile, okay? So that is what the definition of Agile is. It's not meant to reduce the amount of time to do more work. It is meant to release a product to the customer as quickly as possible so that you can start to get feedback and either refine the path of the product that you're building or to give the business the ability to start making early use of the solution so that they don't have to wait until the end of the entire development cycle, as is the case with waterfall, with the waterfall philosophy. Okay, so that's essentially the definition. Let's go right down to the bottom of the article to look at some of the major drawbacks of what Agile has, okay? And the very first drawback that I've listed here is the fact that going Agile a lot of times strips out the developer's ability and the business architect's ability and the business analyst's ability to do the architecture work that's needed oftentimes to make sure that you are developing a product that is going to be scalable, or that you're delivering a product that is going to be easy to update, or that it's actually going to have the capacity that it needs to be able to meet the customer's needs. Software development in many ways is very similar to building construction. If you were to imagine somebody who wants to build a building and they put zero architecture work into it, they don't consider how they're going to plug in to the city's sewage system, the city's water system, the city's electrical grid. If they don't put any consideration into any of that, all they do is they just buy a plot of land and they start building. They don't give any consideration to how many rooms they want, how many bathrooms they need, how many floors the building should have. If they don't think those architectural things through ahead of time, you can imagine what that construction project is going to look like 5 or 6 months down the road. It's going to be disastrous, right? And software development is actually very, very similar to that. And so there has to be a certain amount of architecture work at the functional level and at the technical level for the solution to actually have some viability. And with Agile, that architecture work tends to get neglected. And the way that I've illustrated that here is that oftentimes the way that Agile is sold to management is that it is going to give you a lot of things much more quickly. Okay, that's typically the way that many managers, especially if they're less experienced managers, that's the way they understand the Agile philosophy of software development. The reality of Agile is that it actually only covers the build, the release, and the maintenance portions of the development lifecycle. What it tends to do in most organizations, because of the way that it's sold, is that it tends to neglect the major upstream activities that the business analyst and the business architect need to do, and that the solutions or the technical architects need to do before they dive right into the build phase of the project, right? And so that is one of the major drawbacks of Agile. And again, I have listed other drawbacks, and I've listed some very major benefits of going Agile. The reality for most business analysts is that the environment that they're going to end up in is not going to be a purely Agile environment. Most organizations that try to go Agile tend to find out the hard way that going pure Agile isn't really a good fit for their organizations. And so what they tend to do is that they tend to adopt certain Agile principles and build them into their existing waterfall methodology so that they can get some of the benefits of Agile without having to put in all of the work and without having to accept all of the major downsides of Agile. Okay, so the bottom line really of this article for most business analysts is that business analysts should really aim to prepare themselves when it comes to training and when it comes to skills development. Business analysts should aim to learn just enough Agile to be able to make sure they understand how Agile works, but learn the skills that they're going to need to do the actual work on the ground, which is very unlikely to be a pure Agile methodology environment, right? There are very rare examples of organizations that do pure Agile methodology. The majority of organizations out there are doing a somewhat hybrid Agile waterfall methodology. And as an analyst, you need to make sure you prepare yourself for that environment while really understanding what the ideal of Agile is. Take a look at this article if you're really interested in understanding in depth what Agile is, what it's meant to do, and it can help you to push through a lot of the marketing hype that exists around Agile, and it helps you to understand some of the misconceptions that the management of your organizations might have about Agile so that you can start to build some strategies around managing the risks that Agile actually presents, okay? Take a look at that. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section, and I'll be happy to address them for you.